Hi, Justin. Thank you for being with us today. I am delighted to have you as a guest, and I know that the information that you are going to share to us, and I'm going to prompt you with some really delving questions, is going to be very helpful to our folks. So glad to have you here, Justin.
It is great to be here and there and everywhere. It's a
Wherever
magical
you
way.
are, wherever we are.
Yep, everywhere. It's
Yeah,
just like the field. It's everywhere and nowhere at once.
that's right. Exactly. Um, Justin, as we talked about a little bit before we actually clicked the record button, um, you have achieved, by virtue of your experiences and your healing process, some degrees of condition of being that most folks, if they're aware of them, have not achieved them yet. And so, kind of like if I could to provide you with an open ended question, just ask you where in your journey, and we'll just call this the enlightenment journey because that's what we're all on, whether we're aware of it or not. Where do you feel that you have arrived, and where do you anticipate that going in the relatively near future?
Yeah. So, I each day is something new and something exciting, and I do my best to kind of call in, my future. And I have big plans and I have big dreams, and that's going to take a while. There's no time constraints on the law of attraction, right? Like
Hmm.
I consider it to be, a beacon. So if you think about a beacon, if a ship is going down off seas and it's heading down, it's crashing some rocks and it's sinking. They have those rescue beacons that you send off. And so, like the beacon goes off and they pull the thing and it's putting out the signal and it shoots it to the Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard, might be, get a helicopter, might be hours away. As long as that beacon is going, the Coast Guard will find that ship no matter how long it takes. But if the beacon goes off, now that Coast Guard is lost in darkness and has no idea where that ship is. So that's where I went wrong with creating this future that you're talking about, like where my life is going. Where I went wrong in the beginning. I read The Secret, in college, and it was, I liked it, and I kind of did some things, and little things worked here and there, but I, gave up after for a month. So my beacon went silent, and nothing happened with it. But now I'm keeping it lit every day in meditation, in yoga, in thought, creating this thing, and it's already, already things have happened with the book, and its proof is just everywhere. So I'm going to keep going with it, but where I am now, it's just absolutely wonderful. I believe I've really, that there is no healed, right? I don't believe there is healed with someone with, stuff that I've been through. There's really no healed. That there is always just a continuous desire for healing.
Hmm.
But a scar is a whole lot better than the gaping wound that I experienced, earlier in life. So I'm okay with the kind of the scar that I've got now. And there was a very sensitive. It's very similar. I like to I love comparing to the body. People really have a good understanding of body, but they don't have a great understanding of this emotional, mental side to us. So I like to compare, emotional trauma to a physical trauma. So if you go up a ladder and you fall off and there's a bone sticking out of your arm, well, this is probably not a good time for typical Eastern medicine. Meditation probably isn't, is acupuncture isn't going to do a whole lot in that moment. You go to a doctor and he you know sets the bone so that it will
Treats the
heal
trauma.
properly. Yeah,
Yeah,
so that
treats
it
the
sort of
trauma.
heals properly. But if you don't go to the doctor and get that, the doctor really doesn't. The doctor doesn't heal anything. What made the body heals the body. But the doctor is really important to set that bone. So you set that bone and it heals properly, and now you've got. But you're always going to have that scar. But if you don't, now it's just like emotional trauma. Now that bone has not set properly, and you kind of hold it away, because you don't want people to touch it because it's painful because it hasn't healed properly. So and it's going to be painful forever. So anyone that touches that bone, it's just like an emotional. You get close to that, and there's this a thing of this emotional thing, and maybe someone says something, maybe you see something in a movie, and that's too close. Oh, that hurts, and so now you're going to have a react instead of a response. React and response, two very different things. So now I'm proud to say that I'm a responder and not a reactor. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's come from my healing is this amazing ability to be within myself and take breaths and not react like I used to. And reacting will get us into trouble. A lot of us that have kind of these issues, it's reacting will get, but responding, it's that's in the moment. You just take a breath and things get much better. So yeah, I'm very proud to say I'm moved from a reactor to a responder.
Okay. So, what aspect of you changed from when you were a reactor to being a responder?
Well, I'm off airplane mode. That's the best way to say it.
The
I
what?
airplane mode. So our
Airplane mode.
phones,
Okay.
yeah. So our phones are have this setting where you put it on the airplane and everyone says, turn on airplane mode. And so, it's still on, it still works, it's still functional, it's still useful. But it's not getting any of the signals that it's not living up to its full potential, right? Like, you can't make calls, texts are not coming in, emails, those aren't coming in. And so I realized, in this kind of this moment that I had of this awakening, that I had been on airplane mode my entire life. I believe children are completely off airplane mode, and society programs that airplane, that society turns it on. And then we grow up with limitations and thinking this and that, and all the societal beliefs that put in for us that we believe in, from school, from parents, from religion, from wherever, and all these kind of limiting beliefs, and airplane mode is turned on. And that's what I credit to my healing, is this amazing moment of the airplane mode being turned off and signals coming in, and just this absolute, I call it bliss. It's called a bliss attack. I call it my bliss attack, or my near life experience, because I wasn't dead. You hear about near death experiences. This was a near life experience. And so that is what I credit to everything healing, because now I'm in contact with the source, the source of everything. And it talks to me every day. And there's a difference between intuition, the intuitive voice, and the instinctual voice. And I still have both voices. But when we go through trauma, that instinctual voice gets turned off. And a lot of times it will hold us back from great things because it's trying to keep us safe, but it's trying to keep us too safe. So finding the difference between those two voices has been incredible, and knowing which one is which. And I used to have this inner critic, right? This inner critic that was, and I think a lot of people do, right? That's just always ragging on yourself. You talk to yourself in a worse way than you'd ever talk to anybody else. And so, I talk to myself that way, and it's so bad and negative. And but something happened through my healing and through this process, and that's kind of what I wrote the books, is like, you can alchemize your inner critic into a cheerleader. And now I have a cheerleader, telling me, like, way to go. That was great. Good job. Like, nothing bad. I mean, I still get the occasional, but I can, be like, I know, no, I'm not going to listen to that one. And then the other one comes in. So, it's whatever one you're focusing on. That's what gets bigger. Right. So, yeah, alchemizing that inner critic into an inner cheerleader, and that's what's happened, and that's really what's changed things. Is I have this constant cheerleader that's really amazing. That's telling me to go and tells me to do the right things, and will tell me about future events that involve me. I'm not like a psychic or anything, but it will tell me which way is the best way to go. It's exactly like the phone. I use a lot of technology metaphors because it's incredible. So when we go on our phone and we have Google Maps or Apple Maps, whatever you use, you have your stop, and then you got your destination, and then it tells you the quickest way to get there, right? Well, a lot of times, and it also tell us about like road closures or speed traps, and it'll tell us about those things that could slow us down and could get us in trouble. It will tell us that stuff if we're listening, if we
Hmm.
pay attention, if we believe it, because it tells me it's a speed trap. I don't see a speed trap. I just have to believe that it's up there and slow down. And so the source energy works exactly the same way. And so it'll tell you this stuff, but and it'll redirect you. So when you take a wrong turn, and I've taken plenty, thankfully not so much anymore because I know which is which, but I've taken lots of wrong turns. It'll redirect and get you back on the path to the fastest way to get there. But if you keep taking wrong turns, it's going to take a lot longer to get there. So, having that and knowing that voice, and that's really what's been so incredible in my life, and what I want to help people with is, like, you should, I consider myself very special, but I'm not unique. Anyone can do this. This is not we're all, the same. I believe we're just fractal portions of, the creator itself, the source energy. We're just little fractal portions of it. So there's no difference between you, me, Jesus and Michael Jordan, like that. There's no real, like they've just figured something out, and everyone can do this. And it's just a matter of figuring it out and finding this kind of map that I was given help by this source energy. So it's just this blueprint and this map to help other people turn it around.
And you attribute or you define the transition point for you as being a point of awakening. Is that correct?
I'd consider it, yeah, awakening. It's the airplane
What is
mode turned
awakening
off.
in your perspective? How would you define awakening? What's happening when we have an awakening?
It's it's just seeing things for the way they are. So it's like waking up from the dream, but you're still in the dream. So that's the best way I can compare it. It's waking up from the dream, but you're still in the dream. It's now knowing, lucid dreams. You can control your dreams at night, and that's kind of what this is. So it's waking up from the dream in the dream, and that is what happens is you start seeing through the illusionary nature of things, and you start really questioning a lot of things that's going on. Well, things I'm being told, things in religion, like politics. Boy, that sure isn't real good. That seems to be separating and causing a lot of anger. I don't think it, I don't really think it does a lot of, what? It doesn't do a lot of good. It actually, it's just an illusion of change. And I see through illusions now. I can't stand politics now because it creates this illusion of change and make people think they have control when there is no control. So it's just seeing through these things that just have that is the awakening, and that is the best way I can put it, is waking up from the dream in the dream. And that's what happened to me, and I'm able to see through things, and it's just wonderful. Yeah.
Okay. You in your write-ups, you make reference to 12-step programs, and you in your history have experienced addiction,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you were involved with 12-step programs at one point.
Oh, sure.
Is it
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
okay?
So
What?
what
Well,
happened? Just
let
Yeah, go
me
ahead.
ask you. In the 12-step program, um, step one is when you have an awakening. And that awakening, simplified, taking it out of the context of AA or NA, is an awareness on the individual's process that they're not happy. That's all that step one says. I'm not happy. And you, I would wager, had that moment in your processes when you realized that regardless of all the stuff that I've been doing, I'm not happy. Is that correct? Would that be accurate?
Oh, I definitely was not happy, certainly. And
Mm.
part of step one is admitting we are powerless, which stops me right there. I've worked the steps 3 times when I was more going the Christian route, and that was kind of working for a time. But obviously, I've changed my thinking around religion, and AA is essentially disguised Christianity. It is built on a foundation of Christianity, and so it is both that, the world is a world of gray. It is not one thing or two. It is both very helpful and both disempowering at the same time. So it is not destructive. I find religion for me was very destructive. The Christianity for me became both helpful and destructive. So, and it was both
Hmm.
things. So but with AA, it's that powerless thing. I don't no. No, no, I don't believe I'm powerless. I believe I don't know how powerful I am. That is the problem. So when things come up, and I just don't vibe with that. I'll never work them again because we're not going to get past the first step, admitting we are powerless. And so it's no, I don't. That is a very religion thing, that there's a separation between us and God, when really there is no separation.
I,
Separation is
I,
illusion.
I agree with you, and I'm not disagreeing with you. But when you take religion out of it, when you take the God part out of it, and you take the alcohol part out of it, what that first step is really saying is, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, that's all that first step is saying. In your experience, there, and to my ears, and in your experience, you had a moment where you had that realization that you were not happy, and it may have not have been one time, it may have been repeated several times. But what happens in our healing process and when our transformation of an awakening is we have to make that first step that I'm not happy. What has happened is for the first time in our lives, the awareness that heretofore has been pointed outside of us in order to manipulate the world to give us more of what we like is turned inside. Because in order to become aware that you're not happy, you have to look inside for the first time
Mm-hmm.
to make
Yeah,
that
no, absolutely.
realization. That's the beginning, regardless of who you are and what your previous experiences are. That's the first time that you begin an awakening. That is an awakening to be able to point that awareness inside of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
no,
from that
absolutely.
step, and I do a lot of counseling with folks that suffer from all sorts of addictions, as well as folks that are just experiencing life. And that is a necessary first step that, from your description, was part of your experience, and you just put it into overdrive to go from that point. But that is an awakening. When the first time awareness is our inherent characteristic, that is our um, creatorness that we have available to us in this range of consciousness. While we're promoting the identity, which is the source of all of our stress and ultimately suffering, our awareness is pointed outside of us because we're trying to trick the world to give us more of what we like. When we have that awakening, is the first time that we point that awareness inside and realize, hey, all this stuff that I've been doing is not making me happy. So something's got to change.
Mhm.
In your experience, what you're relaying to us is um, you had that awakening, and you quickly blew past that because that awareness was inverted inside, and everything that you've been describing to us has been an awareness of what you have created in this hierophant that was perpetuating your stress and suffering. Was
Yeah.
it not?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, first of all, I've been kind of. A lot of people don't understand that they're suffering until they start to heal because it's just the baseline. It's just how things are. So they don't even understand that they're suffering until they're like, wow, I was really miserable, which was me. I consider myself passively suicidal my whole life. It's just passively suicidal. I made up that term because it's just like I don't. You get up and you're just like, I don't. I'm not going to make plans on it, but if it happens, who cares?
That
And
was
so,
the
yeah.
identity that you created, though,
Oh yeah, sure.
right?
Oh no, I am that is that character. That is the character that my past created. What I am is the awareness of that character. That is who I am. I am the awareness of my thoughts. I am the awareness of my shadow. I am the awareness of that character. That is me kind of looking at me.
And what
And
does that awareness afford you the opportunity to do?
live go for my dreams, like
To heal,
go for it. Yeah, to
to
heal. Well,
heal,
to
right?
heal. Yeah, I mean, of course, to heal first. Yeah, yeah. And but during the healing is kind of that exciting time where like I'd never, so like a C+ student, I never really cared much for school, and here I'm writing a book, and a good book. So it's pretty, it's pretty amazing. And so and I also realized that there is this difference, right? You're talking about happiness, but happiness and joy are two different things. I experienced happiness when I was passively suicidal because I could experience happiness in sex or hamburger
But it was
or
transient.
like,
But it
but
was
yeah, but
transient. It was immediate
it came and go.
gratification.
You had to keep it going. Now joy, very different. That is that, and what I've found, this is fascinating too, because what I've found now that my joy has become, because if your joy is really low, that means what makes you happy is gonna spike really high, and it's gonna become, that's where addiction comes in, whether it's drugs, alcohol, gambling, whatever. And so it spikes it really high, so you really like that thing, and so any other time when you don't have that thing, you're kind of miserable. But when your joy starts to fill up that cup, now, like, what made you, the happiness level is at the same, but your joy is higher, so that it doesn't have that same effect on me anymore. Like, that, this certain things I still enjoy them, but I have that joy that carries through. And that's just because the joy cup has filled. And now that happiness level, it stays the same, but the joy is filled. So it's not like the joy is, very low, and then that happiness, and then you bring the joy up, and it's like, oh, that was still good, but it doesn't bring me what it brought me before. And that's okay, because I feel I take my joy, and I can have my joy in my life, and the things that make me happy, they spike it a little bit, and then it's like, oh, that was fun. All right, let's go back to joy. So, and that's part of healing too. Absolutely.
So your median condition of being has increased.
Oh yeah.
Your
Yeah.
median
Yeah.
level,
Yeah.
certainly, there
Oh,
are
big
peaks
time.
and
Yeah.
valleys below that, but your median level has increased.
Yeah.
We
That's
have
what's
that
happening.
is what your experience has been is pretty much the design for all of us to varying degrees of intensity. Yours was obviously very intense. Uh, why do you think that we would have that design? Why would we be designed to experience a lot of what we don't like?
I think this is a school, and I believe in simulation theory. If you think about a flight simulator, you go in there and you learn, you learn how to fly a plane, right? In a quote unconsequential atmosphere. People would say this is an unconsequential atmosphere. Well, the consequences stay here, because what carries with us is this what we're supposed to practice, and that is the practice of love, because it is the one thing that transcends space and time, and we both will leave it here and take it with us. So I believe this is a simulation in which, and at the very end, I think we get, there's no scary hell or anything like that. We get a review. And just like in a flight simulator, if they don't sit down with that pilot and say, what'd you do wrong? What'd you do this? What'd you do that? What would you do good? What'd you do? And they don't learn. So it's like, I don't know what I did. I don't know. They just crashed the plane. Well, here's what you did. Here's, here's, and so at the very end of this simulation, there's going to be a review. But I think it was put in us because it is a bit of a game. I think we're supposed to figure out, we have this eraser. So we come in and there's just everything's erased. And so now we're programmed with what society programs us with. And for some reason, society has kept these things down low and doesn't really want people to know quite who they are or how powerful they are. And I think that is part of the game, is waking up and figuring stuff out. Like, who am I? Like, what am I doing here? But so it's part of the game. If you think about a video game, you go in and, no one's going to buy a video game Justin's Day on the couch. That's boring. You want a video game full of challenges. You want to figure out things. You want to level up. You want to beat the game. You want to keep going. And if the game is boring, and then like, no, no one's going to play it. So, you have to understand and see challenges for what they are. And, it's just to get people to level up, to practice. Where spiritual growth is the point of this whole thing. So that I think it's why is because I think it's a game. It's what we're here to do. We're here to figure stuff out. We're here to spiritually grow. We're here to spread love and figure out who we are. And, without this built-in forgetter, and, we would just go in knowing that, and kids do know that, but they just get programmed by society, and then you have to go figure it out. And I guess that's just part of the game. So I've had a lot of fun figuring it out now that I've got things going, and, I'm kind of off this airplane mode. So yeah, I because so to answer your question, because I think it's a game. That's the answer. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if all that you experienced is what you would like, is what you like, if you never experienced anything that you did not like, would you know what you like?
Exactly. Contrast, right? What is
Yeah.
light without darkness? It doesn't exist. So
Yeah.
yeah, that is absolutely part of it too. Yeah, a contrast is huge, because, what is happiness if you're never sad? You can't. There's no. It's undefinable. So, and that's part of, that kind of growth and figuring stuff out, is figuring stuff out like that. It's like, challenging. It's like when I first heard that the concept of contrast, it blew me away. It's like, wow, like it was several years, probably like 10 years ago, when I kind of heard that, and someone first told me that, and I really thought about it. I was like, yeah, all right. Yeah, all right. That makes sense. That's why things are the way they are. And, it is a game, but there's also, there has to be, you know, loss and things like that. And, it's overcoming that stuff. And so, yeah, without contrast, we can't define anything.
Well, it's a comparison and contrast. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a process of analogy. That's how all consciousness learns, how it progresses, regardless of your level of consciousness.
Hmm.
but the types of experiences that we have certainly changes in which you're describing in the course of your lifetime is that transition point from being unconscious to being conscious. And that's part of our design. We function according to an archetypical mind, which is nothing more than a blueprint for how we process thought. And we begin as unconscious beings because that requires that awakening, requires that we, for the first time, learn to invert our awareness, and that can happen when you're 17. It can happen when you're 90. It doesn't matter when it happens, as long as it happens. But it's at that point that we are tasked with assuming responsibility for our healing, which is synonymous with advancing along the enlightenment path. We have to get rid of the distortions in our perception of self that we've created by virtue of experiencing a lot of what we don't like.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
and we picture it as what we don't like, but maybe we just it is what it is. Like just if we're up, it's our reactions to what happens and what's good, what is bad is an opinion. It could just be what is, and that's what I try to do as well.
yeah, that inwardly directed awareness is what you're describing is you obviously have gone through a significant process of becoming aware of the beliefs that you've incorporated into your identity that was erroneous, that was the false perception of self, and you let a bunch of those go, which has lessened your stress and allowed your production of that higher median of joy and happiness. Is it
Hmm.
not?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Isn't it the
yeah.
beliefs that you've let go from your identity that have reduced your stress and allowed your happiness to? I just call it happiness. I mean, I like your distinction between joy and happiness, but happiness is our natural state of being. It's
Mhm.
not like we're getting happiness. Is not something you can get or receive. It's something that you are, and you either let it emerge or you don't. But it
Mhm.
fills the voids when you let that stress go by surrendering that erroneous perception of self, and you're describing it as your powerfulness. It is your powerfulness, but it's your creatorness, and you're allowing your authentic self. You're allowing your authentic self to emerge in greater proportion to your residual identity.
Mhm.
Would
Yep.
you
Yep.
agree?
Oh yeah. Yep. Authenticity is massive. If you're not being authentic, if you're not living a truly authentic life, you're holding your soul hostage, essentially. And
Yeah.
yeah. Authenticity has helped me so much. And if there's people in your life that you're afraid to be authentic around, then maybe they're not the best people to be around. Because Dr. Seuss had the best quote. He said, those who matter won't, be authentic because those who matter won't mind, and those who mind don't matter.
Won't matter.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I just love that. That's just one of the best quotes I've ever heard. And so it's that living that authentic life and just letting go. I love, I'm a big pop culture, I'm a big nerd, man. Like and I do, the Comic Cons. I mean, I haven't been to the one in San Diego, which is technically they now own that
That's the holy
phrase.
grail.
Yeah, that's the holy grail, and you gotta be they sell out in an hour. Like I haven't been able to do it, but yeah, but they own that phrase now, Comic Con. But there's Comic Cons quote in every city, and here in Phoenix it's called Fan Fusion, and I go every year. That one's easy to get into. So but you just see it's just a sea of authenticity, right? Like it's just these people who they just are just nerding out, and they're just having the energy there. It's just absolutely incredible, and it's just they're just nerding out and they're just being their authentic selves, whether they're dressed as like, Pokemon or, Jack Sparrow or whatever, costume they want to put on, they want, it's just, they don't, they're in a spot where it's safe and they know they're around people that they can be authentic. They don't have to be someone that they're not. They're not at work where they have to pretend to be, they have to pretend to fit in, they have to pretend to conform. And I absolutely love it. And I go as much as I can because it's just, even if I don't do anything or buy anything or it's just being around that energy and it's just so fulfilling me and it's just absolutely wonderful. So I love when I see people that are truly being their authentic selves, and you'll know them when you see them that they're not holding anything back, and it's just absolutely wonderful. Yeah, absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I went many years ago. I was on a business trip to San Francisco, and I was staying at the Hyatt Renaissance, and they were having a Comic Con convention at that hotel, and I had no idea that it was going to be there. And so I went into got there late at night and got out, got on the elevator, and came on stairs, and it was like I landed in Mars. It was completely unexpected and out of character what I was expecting the Hyatt to be right. But it was a great interview. It was a great feeling, and lots of people just having a tremendous time.
Yep, letting
Yeah,
loose. Yep, love it, love it.
yeah. But to a businessman from Tennessee arriving in San Francisco and then having that my morning greeting, my first morning there
Oh yeah,
was a
yeah.
shocker.
Yep, it definitely can be. But it's just people letting just being themselves, who they actually are, and then just letting it out. And I wish there was more for them to do it, but at least there's this one escape where they can just be whoever they want to be, and they are, and it's just they're just let that they just that's when the character that the past that society has created, that's when that character's put aside, and they allow in who they really are, and it's just so wonderful to see. And you can tell a lot of them that that they've had struggles. They're kind of socially awkward, and they don't connect with people very well, but all of a sudden they're in the sea of people that are all socially awkward and all don't
It's
connect with people.
liberating.
And
Yeah,
yeah, it's liberating, and now they're connecting with people and they're not socially awkward at all, because
right.
all the constraints of society have been let loose, and now
Mhm.
they can just be who they want to be, and they're around people who they want to be, and now they're social. That these people who don't talk to anybody and just kind of like keep to themselves, but now they're put in the situation where they can be themselves, and they other people, oh, let me see your costume, and so it's just so fun to see these people who out in society are not are very keep to themselves, socially awkward people, become social butterflies, and just so anyone can be anything at any time, and that's proof of it. It's just being in the right atmosphere, being authentic, and just letting go, and you can be whoever you want to be. It's really cool.
So you're just call it before awakening time, when you're intensely stressful portions of your life. How do you feel about those experiences now?
I have a lot of love for them, because without those experiences, I wouldn't have the amount of empathy I have. So that's what creates. So there's sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is just hearing someone's pain, and there's empathy, which is feeling it with them. And I've been through so much in my life, in childhood and adulthood. I had a really tough, 4-year period of just lots of death and all kinds of things happening, and bad things. And I had kind of an emotionally neglectful childhood, that where the concept of love really wasn't expressed in a healthy way, and the word wasn't ever mentioned, and I had a very strange relationship with it. And so I've had all these things kind of go on, and I would not change them for anything, because now I have empathy and I understand people better. And it's because I've been through all these things that I can absolutely understand, that I can help people even better. So I have such love for my past now, and it's just it's just incredible to be able to feel what I feel, and hear someone talk to me. I help people like kind of on a one-on-one basis, and to hear people, and then just I get it. I completely understand. I've been through something similar. There's been a lot of loss. I've experienced that kind of emotional neglect. I've been through that. I absolutely know what you're going through, and then it allows me to help even better. And here's what I'm doing. Here's what I've done. Here's things that might help, because this sure helped me. And it's that empathy. And I wouldn't have that empathy if I had a great childhood and never experienced loss. You can't. You can have sympathy and you can kind of understand, oh, that must feel bad. But I have is just like, I know what you're going through is a much more effective way to help somebody. And the feeling I get from helping somebody makes all that pain worthwhile, and what I've gone through. And it's been quite the epic hero's journey. And it's really a fascinating story that I can go back, and someday I'm going to do an autobiography. I'm very interested in the next 10 years, see where those go, because the book is very new. And so I'm very interested in the next 10 years to see where that goes. But at some point it's going to be an autobiography. And so but it's just this, it's just what a story. And it's just so much fun to look back and just be like, wow, I believe I signed a soul contract and came here, and I went through all that because I knew I could handle it. And it was, and what would happen in the future. and this has all been laid out. And so, it's just up to me to keep going and not, screw it all up. But I have the utmost respect and love for my past to keep it short.
Do you retain any resentments?
No. Oh, well, so people wise, and I have some people that really have messed with me, and I've been able to work on that. There's occasional times when I get angry. So I had an ex fiance who just went to go visit her family in Boston one time, and just cut me out. Like she stopped talking to me. She changed her phone number. She won't answer emails. She there's no address, and she has my infant son. So it's been 3 or 4 years, and so that's tough. And so when I tell people you need to forgive them, I get it. Forgiveness can be very tough because I try to keep, what we shared together and what we had and the good times in the front of my brain, because if I don't, I get caught up in that kind of resentment. And I've really done well. And now thinking about it, if we can remove the reaction from the thought, that's kind of the PTSD, is like we have a thought and then we have this reaction. If we can slowly move that, dumb down that reaction from the thought, well, now it's just wisdom. So your trauma has been alchemized into just wisdom. So that is possible, and that's what I've gone through with her. One of the biggest ones I've had a hard time, forgiving and letting go, resentment wise, for me has been, religion and Christianity and the church, that really messed with me when my mom was dying, because they told me, I mean, their definition was that everyone's born a sinner, and without Jesus, which now I see they define as just giving as much money and time to the church as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Without that, you're going to hell. And so my mother had nothing to do with Christianity or anything, never wanted anything to do with it till the day she died. So now this assumption that my mother is in hell messed with me for years. Like, it really messed with me. Like, my mother's in hell. Oh my God. And so I was a very weak-minded individual. Any pastor will tell you that their congregation, they call them a flock, a bunch of sheep. That's not so good to be a sheep, because, without Hitler's sheep, there'd be no Holocaust. So I don't see being a sheep as a real good thing, but they'll openly say it. But that's what I was. I was a sheep. And so I was just listening, and just, and I would go to a pastor, when she was dying. I was like, I'm afraid my mom is going to hell. And he wouldn't tell me she's definitely going to hell, but she wouldn't tell me she's definitely not. And she gives this whole like mind screwing thing. So I have a lot of resentment now that I've let all that go. And so that's a really tough one for me to go. And that's the hardest one. So I've been working on the acts and getting through that, and parent wise and stuff. And I really feel like I've forgiven humans. I'm really struggling with this last one. And so I'm working on it. And so that's the, but I feel it. I still feel it when I kind of talk about it, and that anger, kind of like I'm talking about it now, and that anger's coming up. So it's still there, but I'm working on it. And it's very weird because I can't take it out on it. It's just an institution that was centuries old, millennia old. So like,
What does that institution do to the population?
Karl Marx said it was the opiate of the masses, which I didn't really understand until I was addicted to opiates. It kind of, in the beginning, it really makes you feel really good, but then it starts to change the way you think, act, and feel, and it becomes a little bit insidious, and then all these beliefs are placed in you, and then when something happens, like all of a sudden my mom is placed terminally ill, and now all these beliefs are coming in, and so now it's changed the way I think, act, and feel. But from before, I would have never thought that before. I wasn't into Christianity. It helped me get sober, was Christianity, but then it also destroyed me. So there's these two things. There's so much good and helpfulness that it came with it. 7 years of sobriety, but then it totally destroyed me. So, and it's just like opiates. So I didn't understand that until I went through that. It was like, oh my gosh, because opiates did the same thing to me. Oh, it was a lot of fun in the beginning. Let me tell you, it was a lot of fun. I would, just be messed up, and it felt good, and like party and whatever. But after a while, you become physically addicted, and it just starts to destroy you. And so had no idea until it really happened to me. But that is, yeah, it's been a tough one. It's a daily reprieve for certain, because I don't want to mess with people's beliefs. And, if they're really into the Christian religion, that's great. I would advise them to, take all the great things about Christianity that you hear, and kind of leave the dogma to the side, because it's not the only way. And, to be disrespectful at other people's religions. And I kind of was like, I thought, Muslims and Jews, everyone needs to be Christian. I was like that. I was just such a It's just such a sheep, man. So it's tough seeing that, and it's tough seeing people that are me, and I can hear them in the voice that were me and that speak that way, and are full of fear, are just full of fear because they think everyone around them is going to hell, and that's kind of the way you can twist those words in the Bible, and it's both helpful and destructive, the Bible. So it's a brilliantly, I like to say, like a sorcerer, like the whole thing is sorcery with a U, so a sorcerer, source energy, we get that energy field, but a sorcerer will go into the Bible and treat it as a cave, right? Because it can be dark and scary, but there are lots of gems to be found in this cave, right? So if you go in and you just pick the gems, stick those in your pocket and walk out, leave all the rest, well, the zealot enters the cave and just takes everything, and just so now they've got the gems, sure, but they're also weighed down by a bunch of rocks and dirt that are useless in their life. So it's that's there's so I would never say anything against it because there's so much gold in the Bible, but you can't take it all. It's not, we have this weird thing in our brains where it's all or nothing. It's black or white, and it's just not the case, man. It's just not. So, it's that kind of stuff that has just helped me so much. And it really has. So, but I'm still forgiving, like forgiving every day. And I just want to see people united. I believe spirituality, religion divides and spirituality unites. Religion is taught, spirituality is found, and I found spirituality. And for those that are interested in, I can foster that within them, and it's a fun life, man. It really is.
You have an obvious understanding of the purpose of the hardships in your life, and it seems that you've converted those to gratitude for the experiences that they provided you. Um, uh, Religion does the same thing. I concur with you 100% on the foibles of religion and the effects on the population, but by that same token, it is a potentiator for people's awareness, because it's through that suppression that they experience the frustration and the um, dissatisfaction with the dogma of the religion. And that, uh, in and of itself, serves as a potentiator for our awakening, to motivate them to get beyond the dogma in the confines of the religion. And it's really not that difficult to convert that resentment to gratitude when you again put it in the same perspective that you have your other experiences in life. Um, it's difficult to see its effect on our loved ones and the general population, because those become our uh, significant others that are in our life become peer supports for our identity, which is our false self. And when we have a loss of a significant peer support for our identity, then it creates a feeling of instability in our identity, and our identity is who we think we are. And it is also it's fear because of the instability of our perception of health, self, who we think we are. But it also challenges our source of what we perceive to be love that we're getting. And part of our awakening process and realization process is to understand that we're not getting love. We've never gotten love. We've never given love. What we've gotten is permission from the person, the place, or the environment that we were in at the time to temporarily surrender what our perception of self was, this false identity, and we have felt our authentic self. We have felt the love that we already are. So understanding that we're not getting anything, we're just getting rid of stuff, which was the Buddha's teachings all through his time on earth, is we don't need to get anything. We need to get rid of stuff and allow that authentic self. And that's
Mm.
what I understood you were describing. When your median level of joy slash happiness is escalating, then that's evidence of the healing that you are experiencing by virtue of allowing your authentic self to emerge through the significant identity that you had created through the earlier parts of your life. And so the whole process of your status of where you are, your condition of where you are, is advanced and measured by virtue of the level of happiness that you feel on an everyday basis. That's the measure of how we're doing it in our spirituality and our evolutionary process. The happier we are, the better we're doing. And you can look at that on a day-to-day basis. I'm happier than I was yesterday, just a little bit, but I'm happier than I was yesterday. So I'm going down the path in the right way.
Yeah, and it takes work. Like it doesn't just happen. You can't like it doesn't just my daily routine has continued over time, and that's what's really building it up. It's that shadow work and letting go of the beliefs like we were talking about, the limiting beliefs, the false beliefs. I understand healing from trauma, but also my daily routine and what I do, and that's if we just continue on with the way we're on, it's nothing's going to change. Well, I changed things. I wake up every day. I do my journaling. I write, I do my yoga, I do my meditation, I work out, I do things. I purposely build that happiness, build that joy, build it up. And so you have to, it's not just going to happen. You have to,
Right.
healing is effort. It's not just time and effort. It's effort and time. It's the time thing of healing all wounds is complete fallacy. That's whoever made that up is totally wrong. It is effort and time. So and that's healing too. And so it's yeah, it can't it's not just going to happen. That's what I want to make
Well,
sure to tell
that's
people. It's not
the behavior that you've incorporated into your day just reinforces your balance. And I
nutrition
would
as well. That's a big
and I
one
would
too. Yeah, I work
suspect
for
that
those.
balance is easier and easier to maintain because of the behavior that you've established. And those
Yeah,
are the things that are necessary for you to maintain that balance. But it becomes easier to do because that becomes more of your natural state of being.
that's wonderful. I look forward to it. I look forward to getting up every day, and I look forward to my 30-minute yoga and my 30-minute meditation and my journaling, and that's my time. Is that sets the day? That sets the tone for the day. And I do it every single day. There's no bargaining. I like to do it at night too. The yoga and meditation before night. That's negotiable because sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But I really try to do it. But there is no non-negotiable. I get up every morning and I do the same thing and I look forward to it and I like it because I've programmed that into my mind to be part of who I am. And we can
Mhm.
unprogram ourselves and we can program as we are biological computers, and if we're not constantly continuing to check our thoughts and our feelings before they become actions, we're like meat robots. So if
Yeah.
you're not, that's the consciousness that you're talking about, the awareness. We're not checking on that stuff and saying, like, oh, I don't want to do that today. Well, discipline over motivation. Motivation will run out. Discipline is nope. Discipline, and you discipline, and you discipline, and you discipline until it just there. You don't. There's discipline is no longer needed. I don't.
It's
It's
no
not
longer
discipline.
discipline. It's just
It's
how you are.
it's just who I am. Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
discipline involved with my yoga and my meditation, my working out. I love it because it's just I programmed it in there, and then discipline disappears. It's great. It's amazing how it works.
Yeah. It is. It is. Justin, do you have any more words of wisdom to our listeners before we depart? We've shared
Oh,
a tremendous amount.
yeah.
How would you
I've got one last
conclude?
thing. Yeah, so there's one thing I really like. It's, that's I've heard so much my whole life, and someone like me that the idea of live life like it's your last day. Well, for someone like me, that's not such a healthy mindset because my last day might be like I'm gonna wake up. I'm not gonna my wake up. I'll get out of bed slow. I'm not gonna do my yoga meditation. I'm not gonna work out because it's my last day. I'll probably end up at a bar, and who knows? I might end up robbing a pharmacy. I don't know. It's my last day. There's no consequences. I'm not so, and that's not a good way to live. So I understand for people like me, that last day is not great. So I like to tell people live life like it's your first day. So so you're building something for the future. You also kind of have this childlike curiosity. Curiosity is a big deal for healing. Start getting curious about what's going on inside you, the way you feel about other people. Why are they acting that way? Oh, there must be something going on in their life about the world around you. Why is this that way? Why is this that way? Question things. Why is this politician saying it? Why? Get curious. It is your first day. And kids get to the point of just annoyance with a lot of parents is the why, why, why. Well, I love that. Keep it up. Like that's the way we should be. Like in the idea of the simulation, if you're just zapped in, you're this adult person, you're everything you are, but you have you have no memory of the past or the future, and you're just like, oh, what do I do? Like, and then you kind of look around, it's like, oh, it's beautiful. This is really quite interesting. You have an awareness, and you observe the world for what it is, instead of, like I see people walking all the time and they're stuck on their phones and they're looking down here when there's so much beauty out here. You know, like let go and just look. And so if you treat life like it's your first day every day, things change quickly. Just get curious. That's my advice.
Great. I appreciate that. Most important question we can ask is why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Justin, I thank you for this. I've enjoyed our conversation greatly, and I'm sure our listeners will. And I'm going to click us off the recording and we can chat for a minute afterwards. And
Cool.
I'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Yeah, it's been great. Peace
Thank
out.
you.